Today, I'm going to share a tip that just absolutely changed how I approach action sports and wildlife photography. I learned it in Costa Rica. It's going to be potentially a little controversial for some, may choose not to do it, but for the careful and the brave, it's a way when you're shooting in burst mode to get that sharp frame at a slower shutter speed or capture that most special moment of your subject, to cull through those images much, much faster and save yourself hours of post-production looking for the sharpest, best composed image. Well, hey everybody, welcome, it's Hudson. I'm gonna share a tip that I just was blown away by, that I learned from our local guide down in Costa Rica, Dennis Valverde, who I will absolutely be bringing workshop crews back to work with down there. He's an amazing guide, amazing photographer, and just a really fun guy to hang out with. And he had this new method to me of culling through his images while he's out in the field so that all he brings home are the best of the best, and not having to sit for hours and hours at the computer trying to figure out which are the best of the best. And I know some of you, when I talk about this technique, are gonna say, you are high, you're crazy, there's no way I'm gonna use this technique. A lot of my workshop participants said, no, I'm not comfortable with that. A few of them did. All of us who did were blown away at the time savings that's possible. And I wanna just give Dennis a big, huge shout out and thank you. And I'm gonna get Dennis on for an approach in the scene just to talk about Costa Rica before too much time goes by, because he's awesome and he's fun. All right, so what is this technique? Well, first of all, there's a couple parts to it. I think you're basically culling while you're in the field by chimping, or before you bring the photos into the computer, you're culling in the camera. And instead of deleting all the ones that are bad, you're marking the ones that you want to keep. It's sort of flipped on its head. And we're using the protect feature that your camera has. Sony calls it lock. Canon and Nikon call it protect. Other brands do different things, but there's a way to protect individual files from deletion. When you get something incredible, that triple rainbow over Machu Picchu, you can protect that file so that even if you accidentally formatted your card, it wouldn't be deleted. It's actually, we're kind of flipping that technique on its head, and we're saying we're only gonna mark the best images from our series that we're shooting from our bursts as protected, and then we'll delete everything else. And if you can keep up with it in the field, if you're working with bursts that are infrequent enough that you can go through culling and looking, I'm gonna show you how to do it, how you can get a really accurate view of whether your image is sharp or not, whether the composition is something that you like or not. And when you've got that one that's the sharpest, you mark it and you hit delete all. Once you catch up with where you happen to be shooting. And all you have left are the ones that you marked that were your favorite and your best. And that way, there was a day in Costa Rica before I learned this technique from Dennis, or he was explaining it to me. I came home with 5,000 images. The next day we shot even longer. I fired more frames in the field and I came home with 200. And I was able to go out, have a beer with friends, and still cull through and find my 10 favorite photos from the day before to show with image reviews. Sort of an amazing, amazing revelation. It's so much quicker, and at the same time, as you cull through looking for the sharp images, you start realizing, ooh, my shutter speed's not fast enough for working on this boat right now. It would be fine on dry land, hand holding this lens at this speed, but on the boat, I need to up my shutter speed because I'm not getting enough sharp frames. That kind of thing, you're getting feedback as you work doing this, and it's improving the next burst that you fire. So I'm gonna show you how to do it, then I'm gonna show you a trick that you have to do to the files to be able to work with them in whatever software you're working in. These locked files can't be deleted via Lightroom or whatever editing app you're in. You have to manipulate those either in Max Finder or Windows File Explorer. I'll show you how to do both of those things once I've shown you the technique. So I'm gonna hook my camera up and I'm gonna talk through how to do this using both my Nikon Z9 and Z50. I'm sure that you can take a look through the instruction manual for your Sony or your Fuji or your Canon and see how to do exactly the same thing. I'll talk through how you do it with the Nikon Z6 and Z7 series. Really quick, almost forgot, before we jump in and go into the camera menus and screen and I show you the controls, I just want to make sure everyone's invited to the big group photography meeting that we're having on Tuesday, July 19th, 10 a.m. Pacific. We're gonna go through your macro images. So when you sign up, submit a macro image. We're gonna go through, review those images, do a little critique and cheerleading. You guys always submit an amazing, amazing group of photos when we do these reviews. I learned some cool new macro techniques alongside this culling technique in Costa Rica, and I'm going to showcase some of that next week in an ATS, so look forward to that. Take your best macro shot. There are submission guidelines on the site when you sign up for the office hours, hudsonhenry.com/office hours, and I hope to see you there on July 19th. Okay, I'm gonna get this hooked up. All right, so before I take off and show you how I'm doing what I'm doing, for those of you who use the Z9, I'm gonna highlight my buttons here and I'm gonna kind of show you which ones I'm using in order to do this. So let's say I just fired off a burst of frames and I want to go back through and review them and mark the ones that I'm going to keep. I'm going to hit the play button down here, and I can either double tap on the screen to get the image up that I want. I can move it around with my thumb. I know it's a little washed out in the view of the buttons that I'm showing here, but you can see in the smaller frame what the back of the camera is displaying. And then the jog wheel, the wheel that you would use to change your shutter and aperture depending on what mode you're in. That back wheel flips from image to image. And when you want to mark one, you say, "Ooh, that's nice and sharp." You can blow it up and have a look at more than 100%. You know, I can zoom in to 100% with my settings by also clicking the OK button in the middle of that digital display button. So again, you know, double click takes you in and out, moving the file around with your finger. And this can work for the D850 and other DSLRs. When I'm using the Z9 out in the field on a bright day, I often look through the viewfinder and do this internally with the diopter adjusted viewfinder. You know, if I'm doing this on the back of the camera, I'm going to put my reading glasses on, and I can mark with this key right here, up here, the function 4 button. Click on the Z9 is protect, and I can flip through that whole burst, sort of, you know, moving it as the bird moves and say, you know, these aren't the best pose. I can get a view of the whole frame down there to see, you know, where do I need to zoom to? Is it a good composition? Well, that was an interesting one. Maybe I'll mark that. Okay, now if I was to delete all, it would only save those two that I've marked to protect. So that's my method for moving around on the Z9. I'll show you the Z50 as well in a minute. I'm going to work through doing some of these files on the Z9. Then I'll show you how I do the Z50. If you're using another camera, you know, you just have to look in your instruction manual about how you can quickly move through while we're viewing images at 100% resolution. The thing that's really beneficial is that you can see, you know, as I'm jumping in to 100% resolution on this file, it's just instantaneous. You know, it doesn't take a while with a spinning rainbow wheel like it would in Lightroom or an hourglass in Lightroom or any other app. Even Photo Mechanic takes a little while to render a 100% preview of a 47 megapixel file. On these cameras, it's as quick, you know, in a burst mode as flipping that thumb wheel to see each one. This is not as sharp as that. You can just run through. It's instantaneous. There's no more waiting for a full res preview to load. This one is sharp. You can see it right there. Those two are sharp. This one's sharper than that one. I'll unmark that. You know, you can also run through and make sure that that is a good pose. It looks really nice, all right? So that's the time savings right there. So we'll work through this 109 images really fast. And I'll just show you how I would approach it. I usually start from the beginning files so that I catch up. You know, if I keep shooting, at least I'm working in the same direction. So here I have this ibis, and I like to review images. I don't do rotate image because that just tends to make my image really small when I'm reviewing. You know, this image is nice and sharp, but the eyelid is covered. This one doesn't look quite as sharp. That one's a little sharper and a bit of a nice pose. We could back out, double tap, have a look. I'll mark that one as protected. You see the little key marker. You know, as I'll zoom in again, this one's not sharp at all. I was working with a slow shutter speed. The eyelid is closed. You know, nice beak placement, but blurred. It's going to do a little movement here, slow shutter speed. I think I was hand holding it about 200ths of a second. This is shot from a boat. This one's nice and sharp, nice pose. You just move through like this. These aren't great. You can just see it as I'm flipping through so much faster than bringing these files into my computer and rendering them in Lightroom. Now you can see I shot a different burst where they're horizontal. If I back out and I can see, wow, that one nice and sharp. Mark that one, move through. That's also really sharp. That might be sharper than the first. I'm going to delete that first keyed image. And that's the thing, as you cull these down, you can get them right next to each other, looking at which one really is the sharpest. And again, you get a view of what the composition looks like in the inset to the bottom right. I don't like that pose as much. Coming through. Sometimes I'll back out and sort of flip through and say, woo, I do like that image. It is nice and sharp. I'll mark it. Is there anything that looks like it could be better? That's a nice pose too. Let's maybe get one there. Run through. Okay, now we're on to something new. This is a small blue heron that I was observing hunting. So as it's moving through, wow, you can see that is the sharp frame of those two. As I move through, a little bit of a change. I think this heron caught a prawn. Again, this is all taken from a boat in Costa Rica. So, you know, let's get one where the bird's eye is the sharpest. It's nice and sharp in that frame. Prawn looks sharp and not very happy. I don't think any of us would be. This one's not sharp. So as we, we're not going to bring these into our computer ever. Wow, that's a fun one. Nice and sharp. Head turned. Keep moving through. Not as sharp. This one looks nice and sharp. Mark it. You just move through like this. There's a sharp one. I'm shooting at 20 frames a second. Lossless compressed RAW. You can see this one's cool because there's motion going on, but let me get you a wider view. But it's not particularly sharp. We're not going to keep that. I can just move the image with my finger on the touch screen with my thumb. That's the fastest way I've found to do it. That one's pretty sharp. That's the sharpest of those. The bird is moving, it's just caught its prey. Not very sharp. That's a really nice sharp image. Those are all sharp. I might just save all these because this is an interesting scene, right? I could back out and have a look at what is it that I'm looking at. A little less than 100% just by pushing the magnification minus button there. These are all pretty good and they're interesting, so I'm going to keep them because it's such a sequence. There you go. But now I notice that this bird's head is behind that stick is behind it. I'm not as happy with that. Here we've got this, what was it called? Purple gamut, I think, something like that. These are wading birds that just have huge feet. You can see that first image looked good when we weren't zoomed into 100%, but when we zoom in, it's a little bit soft. In the second frame, this is what happens a lot when you're shooting at a slightly slower shutter speed with image stabilization, is that the second frame in the burst, or the third or the fourth, is much sharper than the first just from the pressing of the shutter button. So, I like that one. I'll just keep moving through. That was one burst. I'll look down. This one, I don't like the pose very much. Eyes are kind of obscured. Here's another burst. I'm just going to let all that burst go. This one is razor sharp and really looks nice. Let's back out and have a look at it. I like that. Wow, all these are sharp. There's a slightly different look. Let's look at the whole image. It's nice. I'll protect it. Zoom in again. You get the little key symbol that it's protected. That one's nice. Just protect a few. Actually, we already had that, so I'm going to let that one go. This is sort of my thought process working through out there. This is I like the turn of the head. We'll protect that one. Zoom in, see if there's any sharper. It's a burst, so. Okay, now we're moving on. This is an iguana in a tree. Let's have a look at the larger picture. Pretty cool. I like the backdrop on this. These are all shot with my 800 6.3. And I think generally at about 200th of a second for these not moving subjects. This one is sharper than the other two. Hopefully there's a sharper one than that. That's not very sharp. It was tough hand-holding from the moving boat. That one's nice and sharp. So you can come through. We've got a sharp one. Here is this songbird. I don't remember exactly what bird. It's a shame I don't have Ken Hauser here, one of my workshop participants who knew every bird in the world. He's a wonderful birder. You see, I marked that one because it's so sharp. I like the tilt of the head. Ooh, wow, that is sharp. So we'll go in at 100%, mark it. That's another one. You're just thinking about what do you want to bring home. And now I'm back to the beginning. And so the technique, here's the scary part. The technique is, while you're out there in the field, I have my menu programmed to that same key button. When I'm shooting, when I'm out there in the field in my shooting mode, I hit that key button on the back and it goes into my menu. You could also just hit your menu button and scroll into your menu. And I have delete in my menu. And when I go into it, I have all pictures. I'm going to say all pictures in slot 1. All the photos will be deleted. This is the part where people say, you are crazy. We had 109 photos, and now we have 31. So, here's the other thing. Once you've got those 31, you can scroll through and say which ones are sharper than others. I don't like this one as much. I'm going to remove the protection. You really can kind of, if you have a little second, you can kind of run backwards through here and say which ones really are my favorites from these sequence. Maybe I like that one with the head tilted up more than the other. Again, you might not want to do that. You might want to just stick with, culling down to what you think are good and then do this part in the computer. I have cut my workload far, far down though. And you know what the most special thing of all is? They're all sharp. You're not taking home anything that's less than sharp. So you can just eliminate that whole process of rendering one-to-one previews of your files and looking to see if they're sharp in your computer when you're making your decision about which one is best. You're really now just looking at composition and pose. So, once more, I deleted a couple. I can go in here into my menu, go to delete all pictures, slot 1. All I did to delete those is just removed the protection. So now we're down to 29. We went from 109 to 29. 29 sharp frames that we know don't have some compositional problem. And at the end of the day, if you've been shooting thousands of frames, I'm telling you, I shot probably over 6,000 frames one day with my Z9 and a really heavy shooting. We just saw so much wildlife. And I was working through it. I couldn't keep up during the day, but I was doing that mode where I run through and I'm getting to the last protected image where I left off culling last time. I'm working my way trying to catch up. At the end of the day, I got back to the hotel in the town in Costa Rica. The Warriors were playing the Celtics in the NBA Finals. I put the game on, put the camera in my lap with just the body cap on it, and went through and finished culling in camera because it's just so much quicker. And then by the time I culled, I had over 6,000 frames on my card. I culled, brought it into the computer, and I had less than 300 frames to go through and look at. So it's just a huge time saver. Let me run through quick and show you how that can work in the Z50. It's just slightly different. We'll jump in here, turn the Z50 on. I'll get my GoPro turned back on here so that you can get a view of what I'm doing on the Z50. The Z50 you have to set up. It has a menu item in the custom controls. So if you go into your custom settings menu, and I don't want to reset the custom settings, you go down to controls, F, and you go into your custom controls playback. This is a cool thing. It has a separate set of custom controls for playback. And you want to go in there and put the AEL, AFL, the auto exposure lock, auto focus lock button, which I use as a back button focus on the Z50 when I'm out shooting. You want to change that so that it is protect your files. And now, as you're culling through your images, this was taken at a birthday party for a good friend of ours' daughter who's the same age as my son, Nora. Nora was turning 6, just like Pike. So I'm going to run backwards through this because I know I was protecting files and deleting along the way. And there you go. That's where I've gotten to all the files that are protected. There's my girl Pepper and the slip and slide. And there's baby Jack. And here's that one can get unprotected because it's not sharp. See how that works. I'm running through and marking. That's such a cute dog, Luke. So here's Jack shooting baskets, and that's, we can zoom in to see if it's sharp, but we know it's a good shot. We'll protect that one. That one's really cute. Protect that. It's a little noisy, but we can use DxO Pure Raw. I like that one too. There's his dad, but his face is covered. Those are no good. Those were just a burst. That one's really cute. His face is nice and sharp. We'll mark that. We'll mark that. I know that the face and eye detect was turned on for him. It's a cute one. Definitely a good one. Definitely a good one. Coming down out of the bottom is not as great. And so there you go. I've caught up now. Now I'm just gonna go into my menu. I'm gonna go into playback, delete, it's the top button, delete all. Yes, I know that all images will be deleted. And what do we have left? It's gonna be just the ones that I marked with the protect, all right? If you're working with the Z6 or the Z7 II, it's really unfortunate, but they don't have a playback custom control menu item. And I don't know why the Z6 II, the Z7 II, the Z6, the Z7, but you can map the protect key to be on either of the function buttons. So if you set up one of the user modes for image review, flip into that user mode and set one of your function buttons up front to be protect, then just as you're holding the camera, your hand tends to naturally rest underneath by the grip by one of those function buttons, and as you're scrolling through, you can just hit protect. And all the rest works with the touch screen and the scroll wheel and zooming in and out via the OK button or double tapping the image. It is a huge time saver. I am sure people are gonna say, you're nuts, there's no way I'm deleting all my images out in the field, and that's fine. If you're not comfortable with it, don't do it. But I'd say maybe play around with your cat in the house and practice it a little bit. You just have to be sure that you've gone through them all. Run through and make sure that there isn't a burst that you forgot to go through, check, and mark. And as long as you've got the ones marked that matter to you, the rest can just save you hours and hours of time. Now, as I said, if I'm out doing a Milky Way shoot, I'm probably gonna shoot 20 images in the night. I wanna bring those all into the computer and look at them closely. If I'm doing a landscape shoot, probably not gonna use this technique. I'm gonna come back with less than 100 images anyway. When I'm shooting birds in flight, I'm absolutely using this mode. If I'm shooting an event for a corporate client, which I've done in the past, you get lots of blurry, bad compositions. You might as well mark the good ones in those lulls that are happening during the event so you don't have nearly as much work to do when you get home. The biggest thing this saves for me is the process. I tended to bring all of the images into the computer, mark the ones that I liked, then render one-to-one previews for those ones that I like, and then you find some of them aren't focused as well as you wish. That's eliminated. You do this technique, zooming in to check focus, you'll know that every single image you bring into your computer is in focus, and that saves time, and it's reassuring in the post-production process. And for me, the rest of it, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. Wow, if this seems disjointed, my apologies. I have to shoehorn this in somewhere towards the end of this video. I totally forgot a really important thing if you're using this technique, and that is unlocking these images before you bring them in and import them into your editor or organizer of choice, in my case, Lightroom or ON1. So whether you're using Mac, whether you're using PC, both of those operating systems are going to view these files as locked or protected, and so you're going to need to unlock those in Max Finder or Windows File Explorer. I'm going to start off showing you how to do that in my brand new Mac Studio Ultra, which I'm having a ton of fun testing, and then I'll show you on the PC. All right, so I got my Z50 with a bunch of protected files. I'm gonna pull the SD card out and I'm gonna slip it right here into my card reader. It should pop up on my desktop, and I'm actually gonna copy the folder of images so that I'll have this card. I would normally just go in here, and if you take a look at these files and you get info, each one of them says locked. Every single one, because we marked all the images and deleted the ones that weren't locked. And here I've been shooting JPEG plus RAW for my family photos. I'm just gonna go ahead, I'm gonna drag that onto my desktop, and I'll actually work on the card when I go over to the PC. But here on the Mac, that way, I have it for both ways. It's copying really fast onto this Mac Studio, and I'll work with that folder before importing it. Normally you could just do it on the memory card, but I wanna have this memory card for the PC too, so I can show it to you on both systems. All right, so here it comes, 5 seconds left. We can go ahead and eject the card once this folder of images is done copying. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and eject that SD card just so that we can use it on the PC. All right, so we open this folder. You can see every one of these RAW files. If we get info on it, it is locked. And you can go in and you could uncheck that for each and every single file, but that would be a huge pain in the butt. So there's a little trick with Mac. You're gonna be in here where you've got all these images in this big long chain. Let's just put it over here on the left side of my screen. Whoops. I've got dual screens and I just missed. There we go. It's on the left side of my screen. I can hear people asking, you know, how did you do that? Well, I have this cool app right here called Rectangle, and it lets you, it's a little like a PC moving windows around on Mac. There's some things I miss about PC. This lets you just instantly put windows where you want them, or apps windows where you want them in Mac, much like on a PC. All right, so that aside, we got all these files that we want to remove the protection from, unlock. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Command A to just select them all. So they're all selected, all right? And if I were to hit Command I on my keyboard, it would open up info windows for every single one of those. But if instead I hold down the Option and the Command key at the same time, Option and Command, and then press I, what happens is I get a single info window for all 423 items in that folder. And it has a mark that some of them are locked. I can click on that. Now they're all locked. I click on it again. Now they're all unlocked. Boom. Now you can go ahead and import that folder into Lightroom without worrying about the files being marked, protected, or locked. All right, let me show you on Windows. All right, so I'm plugging my Z50 card into my laptop right now, and I've got it pulled up. It's here, this PC, SDXC card. So I'm just gonna do it right on the card this time. We're gonna remove all the protections. So we open up our folder, there's all these files. If we open any one of those and look at properties, you'll see that they're read-only. That means protected in Windows speak. So I'm gonna just go ahead, move that up where you can see it, cancel because this is a 5K OLED screen, makes it a little hard for you to record more than 4K. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna right-click that folder that contains all the images. I'm gonna hit Properties, and you can see I wanna uncheck Read-Only, Apply, and I wanna apply changes to this folder, subfolders, and files. So you can, in Windows, apply this just across the spectrum to everything within the folder that you're applying it to. And now, boom, those files are all being changed to not be read-only anymore. We can go in and double check that right here on the card. If we look at that same file again, properties, it's no longer read-only. So boom, all of a sudden the protections are removed, and that's how you do it in Windows. So I love the technique. Huge mad props and thanks to Dennis Valverde. Amazing guy, great technique. Again, I'm going to talk about macros and some tips and tricks that I learned both from him and from others on our workshop while we were shooting a lot of macros in the jungle in Costa Rica. I'm going to share some of those tips next week, and I want all of you to sign up for the office hours that we're holding, the big free photography meetup get-together on YouTube Live and Zoom, and submit an image for us to go through and review and talk about during those office hours, a macro image. So guidelines and the place to upload that image and ask a question if you have one is at hudsonhenry.com/office hours. I hope that you'll go check it out and join us and give us an image to look through. The gallery's already growing and it's beautiful. Big thanks to everybody who's been using my links. Those help me out a ton with this educational content. So you can always find those at hudsonhenry.com/ATS links. I'm constantly updating those. If there's something there that you're interested in or something that's not there that you're interested in, email me. And I'm happy to always give gear advice as well as links to anything you're interested in. I may not get back to you the day that you email me if there's a ton going on or I'm off on a workshop, but I will get back to you. All right, everybody, thanks so much. Thanks for supporting this channel, sharing, liking, subscribing. It means so much. I hope everybody is out there enjoying. Summer is here in Oregon. It's beautiful. The sun has finally come out. It's super green because of all the rain that we've had. I'm excited about it. I'm getting out there, being creative with my family and having some fun adventures. I hope all of you are having similar quality time with friends and family, staying creative, staying safe. We'll see you next week.